Hello and welcome to Independent Education TV. I'm Emily Barker. This episode will be an in-depth look into the transition from position of added responsibility or PAR system to middle leadership that's underway now in Queensland's Catholic schools. We'll talk to IEUA-QNT Assistant Secretary Ros McLennan about where schools should be at and what is expected for the future. The new middle leadership structure was negotiated in the 2012 Collective Bargaining Agreement. It was developed to provide schools with a leadership-based model, providing appropriate levels of remuneration and release time for the roles, as opposed to the previous task-orientated PAR structure. The new middle leadership structure is due at the commencement of 2015. The transition is the responsibility of each school's Middle Leadership School Consultative Committee. Ros starts by telling Independent Education TV's reporter what each school should have already done in the transition process.
The first step will have been to record the current story about what's happening with their PAR structure right now. Secondly, they will have established a Middle Leader School Consultative Committee. Thirdly, they will have projected the likely student enrolment when Year 7s join secondary in 2015. That's important because it informs a number of new middle leader units and additional flexible hours that the School Consultative Committee has to play with. Then the principal will have had a high-level, engaged conversation with members of the Middle Leader School Consultative Committee regarding key considerations. And lastly, the Middle Leader School Consultative Committee and the principal will have engaged the entire teaching staff in genuine consultation before the deliberations in the Middle Leader School Consultative Committee commence.
What phase should schools be at right now?
Middle Leader School Consultative Committees will be considering and deliberating on options for a suitable middle leader structure for their school. That includes identifying middle leader positions, thinking about the appropriate tier designation and giving consideration to the allocation of additional flexible hours.
What are the next steps in the transition?
After the Middle Leader School Consultative Committee makes their recommendations on an appropriate new middle leader structure to the principal, the next step is that the principal would consider the Middle Leader School Consultative Committee's recommendations and make a final determination about the structure for the school. Next, the final middle leadership structure would be widely publicised to staff. Applications for all middle leader positions would be called for. An appointment process would be run. And of course, the school would want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the contributions of all outgoing PARs as part of that process as well.
The transition from PAR to middle leader is not a one-for-one process, and there'll be fewer middle leaders than the current number of PARs. So what's the best advice for members who miss out or decline a middle leader position?
Current PARs need to be aware of the negotiated transitional arrangements. What this means is essentially a 12-month acceleration through the teacher classification structure for current PARs who apply for but don't get a new middle leader position under the new structure. The other thing to be aware of for current PARs is that if they're eligible to apply for ET6 status and haven't yet done so, this is the year, because the ET6 allowance equals the middle leader tier 1.2 financial allowance at all times. So it's absolutely critical that current PARs apply for ET6 so they're not disadvantaged financially. There are 2 application rounds for ET6 this year. So current PARs can get their application in by the second Friday of term 2 or by the second Friday of term 4 to get ET6 status.
What is the additional flexible hours per year for?
The additional flexible hours per year minds members' priority that time to do the job is absolutely essential. So the additional flexible hours per year is to be allocated amongst the middle leader positions in a school. It doesn't have to be equally allocated, but Middle Leader School Consultative Committee makes recommendations about which middle leader positions receive what share of the additional flexible hours, and also whether it's to be timetabled on a regular weekly basis or to be delivered to that middle leader position at particular pressure points in the school year. There's also the option where the Middle Leader School Consultative Committee and Principal agree to spend up to half of the additional flexible hours to purchase extra new middle leader units in the development of the school's new middle leadership structure.
Ros, can you paint a picture of when this transition process is over, what this will mean for schools and for education for children?
Over 20 years ago, when the PAR structure was first brought into place, it was envisaged as a large number of task-orientated type of roles. That's changed over time, and this new structure acknowledges the shifting paradigm, I guess, that what middle managers do in schools is much more than doing tasks. It is about leadership and having time to reflect on teaching practice, innovate, and ultimately will deliver the time to support the enhancements to teaching and learning that all middle managers and teachers care about.
Tell us about the support the union's given for its delegates and members through this process.
There's been a number of special PAR member briefings that the union's held across the state with our members to educate and inform them about the changes and the possible impacts on them as PAR role holders and also their school middle management structures as well. That's been backed up by a round Queensland schedule of joint briefings that were held by myself and employing authority representatives, again to educate not just PAR members but principals, Middle Leader School Consultative Committee members, anybody who's interested really in what these changes will mean. There are also a number of resources that we've developed jointly with the employer and posted on both the employer and union websites. Now, they're things like an easy calculator spreadsheet to assist Middle Leader School Consultative Committees in trying out a number of different options. There's also an Excel spreadsheet table that shows schools just how many new middle leader units can be purchased, if you like, if they're willing to give up to half of the additional flexible hours. And copies of the joint presentation is also available to view online as well if you missed it the first time round. One of the many benefits of union membership is the practical step-by-step advice and support that members can obtain from our union at any time. So call us, speak to one of our friendly member services officers or your union organiser, and they'll give you advice about where you are, where you need to be, and what resources we have to get you there.
If you want to know more about the PAR to middle leadership transition, please visit your union's website.